So I want to talk about Brahmavihara again,
Mm.
And a few other things that seem to be connected. So we've been discussing how the Brahmavihara practice is the practice of the peaceful life,
Mm.
a life of non-conflict.
Mm.
And so just say, if you just say when you've got something to say. So my idea is that these four aspects of Brahmavihara, this one mind, metta, karuna, mudita, upekkha, these four aspects need to be discerned one by one.
Mm-hmm.
And when metta is discerned and made steady, one can then discern karuna, one can then discern mudita, and then one can then discern upekkha. Then it's fulfilled. That peaceful mind, that peaceful life is being lived and fulfilled.
So more accurately then, instead of saying one by one, it's one within the other.
It's just the development of that peaceful mind.
So by understanding what metta is, you understand the principle of all four Brahmaviharas. Then within that understanding of metta, development of metta, you can develop karuna. Within development of metta and karuna, you then get to develop mudita, which then results in development of upekkha. You don't abandon metta in order to develop karuna. You don't abandon metta and karuna in order to develop mudita, nor do you abandon metta, karuna and mudita in order to develop upekkha. Upekkha encompasses them all, but in order to arrive at it, you have to follow through them, so to speak. So it's not like, oh, I do metta, I feel accomplished, now I find out what karuna is, I feel accomplished. If you keep doing metta, you will arrive at upekkha, basically. Same, if you keep following the principle of the first jhana, you will arrive at the fourth.
Right. So the idea is peacefulness, non-conflict.
On that general level of what we refer to as a framework, not an individual level of the content of your experience.
So in terms of metta, the Buddha seemed to mean non-ill will rather than an active, friendly activity.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So it's a non-ill will.
Framework of non-ill will.
Yeah.
The mind of non-ill will means even when on a particular level, in terms of the content of your current sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, there is something disagreeable, you will not have ill will towards it because you prioritize protecting the mind of non-ill will regardless of what content that mind is experiencing.
So in terms of whenever you experience something unpleasant, you have non-ill will towards it, you have non-resistance towards it.
Yeah, exactly. Non-ill will means non-resistance.
Which is different from what I usually read as a practice for metta is you have metta for things you like.
Right.
So you generate love.
Yeah.
And that feeling of love, of pleasure towards something you like, that's what you keep going.
Yeah. Well, that's not what the suttas mean by it. So it's usually the contemporary notions of spirituality and everything else, because it's more palpable. It's more palpable for people to sort of, and it's nice. It's better to think in that kind of loving kindness manner towards people than to dislike them or ignore them. But it's a mistake to regard that as a practice of the Dhamma. That's the problem here. Like it really, if you want to think positive thoughts about everyone, by all means. But don't mistake that for the practice of Dhamma, because if you do, then you won't look for what the actual Dhamma and metta is in the suttas. And that's the main problem. Not like saying that that's not Dhamma doesn't mean you should not do it, because it's certainly a good way to relate with people, because not hating them means they will not hate you back more often than not. So it's just going to help you in the level of society. But it's when people make that into spiritual practice, that's when they're going wrong.
But without understanding what the Buddha meant by what he's
so you end up just
terms.
practicing Dhamma rooted in like how you feel. As in, this makes me feel good, thus that's the practice of the Dhamma. And that's more often than not wrong. Because your feelings are already affected by your own resistance towards it or indulgence towards it. So if that's your only criteria for following what the practice of Dhamma is, means your criteria of what Dhamma is your criteria of ignorance, criteria of craving.
So metta what the Buddha means is non-ill will.
Yeah, framework of non-ill will, the mind of non-ill will.
So, but if it was love?
See, but it's not, the reason why I keep saying it's the mind of non-ill will, not just non-ill will. Because I might not have ill will towards you, but I have ill will towards him. That doesn't mean I'm doing metta towards you because I don't hate you. Either way, basically my mind is not developed in regard to metta. Even if I don't hate anybody individually, that still doesn't mean you're developing metta.
Yeah.
In order to develop metta, you need to recognize that framework, that absence of ill will as the basis for your mind state that you then choose to protect and maintain, regardless of who comes basically in your field of vision.
The circumstance.
Regardless of the circumstance, regardless of the elements, regardless of anything you're subjected to. Because you always have a choice. I can now ignore the mind of non-ill will as a priority, and I can choose to prioritize what I'm experiencing right in front of me, as in dealing with you, dealing with that, dealing with this upset, dealing with that pleasure, or whatever. And that choice basically means you abandon the framework for the sake of the content that's within that framework. And that's why you're not developing metta. And that's why that sutta, which is again contemporarily completely misread and mischanted, I remember that. And it's all due to putting a different punctuation. The line, we spoke about it before, the famous line where a mother protects her child. That line refers to he protects his mind of non-ill will, like a mother protects her only child. And then you think, I must regard everybody like my own children. That's completely not what it means. What it means is that if you regard your own mind as your only child, as in it's so important and precious to not lose sight of it, mind of non-ill will, you will automatically cherish all living beings. And if you don't need to take my word for it, you could just see which one then encompasses which principle, either the one I describe or the principle of cherishing all living beings like your children. Which one better corresponds to all four Brahmaviharas? Which one better corresponds to all other aspects of the Dhamma teaching, whereby when the mother brought the baby and left it in front of the Arahant, he didn't even look at it. And the wife realized he will leave this child to die. That's how much he does not care about it. And then she came back, picked up the child and left. And the people reported that to the Buddha, and he said, well done, that's how every Arahant and monk should act. So which one of all of those instances would be then encompassed, which principle would encompass it better? The one I'm describing, whereby if you protect your mind as your only child, you automatically cannot love nor hate. You automatically cannot hate nor love or be infatuated or emotionally bound with the whole world. And that's far better than loving and being emotionally bound with. Or the principle of loving everyone. How do you then tie that in with being indifferent to everyone? But indifference comes as a result of excessive love? That's not how it works. And you already know that, even without any insight into Dhamma.
So that love breeds...
Well, love breeds infatuation, yeah. And then makes you susceptible to aversion. Makes you susceptible to fear and anxiety over what you love. Because now you have no say in it, yet you're dependent on it emotionally and existentially.
Someone will come up and might just want to destroy the thing that you love.
Exactly, and that's what is
go against
what did the Buddha describe to fit that? It was sensuality. He said it's like for the sake of enjoying the ripe mangoes, you climb the tree, and somebody else who also wants to enjoy those mangoes cannot climb the tree, but they can cut it. Yeah. And unless you come down and abandon you enjoying and eating and protecting and being infatuated with your fruit, you will suffer on account of that tree being cut and probably even die. So that's what I mean. By all means, have positive thoughts towards the whole world, but do not mistake that to be the metta that the Buddha described that would result in upekkha and utter complete freedom from the slightest conceit and everything else and attachment to the world.
If you can't see the connection between metta and upekkha, if you can't see that...
Yeah, that means your metta needs redefining.
And so the further development is then karuna, getting it even steadier, which is non-cruelty. So which is, again, to me sounds similar to non-craving in a way. Non-craving is the ultimate non-cruelty.
Well, yeah, it's basically taking the same principle a step further now.
Yeah.
So first you have obvious, like, you meet disagreeable, you have ill will towards it, mind of ill will. You develop the mind of non-ill will in regard to disagreeable, but then you have that kind of still a degree of some resistance. If you were to develop the mind of that non-ill will, you would be then cultivating the non-resistance. That then becomes like karuna, the next step, as in you refine the same principle of non-resistance. Because that's, by the way, what's in common to metta, karuna, mudita and upekkha. Non-resistance.
Yeah.
Non-resistance means no craving.
Well, non-conflict.
Non-conflict means no craving, yeah.
But that's it's got to do with understanding, wisdom, discernment. For example, that other Dhammapada verse where it says, you recognize nobody wants to get hurt. You don't want to get hurt.
Yeah.
And so why?
It's like a universal.
So you don't hurt anyone. Yeah. So that understanding is compassionate.
Yeah. That's what I mean. If understanding is correct, you don't have to do the compassion. The result is compassion.
So it's that steadying of that discernment of...
Exactly, yeah. Not emulating the compassion by visualizing friendliness and love
saving
for everyone.
Someone's life.
Yeah, or dedicating your life to saving other people's lives and so on. If you can help without whatever, any cost of your own well-being, that's great. Even if you want to sacrifice yourself, that's fine. I'm sure you have your reasons. But in terms of the Dhamma practice, none of that would be the practice of the Dhamma. Practice of Dhamma is development of the mind.
So in regard to whatever's felt, pleasant, unpleasant. If it's unpleasant, there's no resistance there.
Exactly.
And if it's pleasant, you're not trying to get it. You're not trying to change circumstances to get it.
The reason why people would want to get the things that are pleasant is because there is also a degree of resistance to the lack of that pleasure. Yeah. It's not pleasant enough and you resist that. You don't want to accept that, you want to change it.
So regardless of...
So if you develop Brahmaviharas, you will be overcoming sensuality as well. Because sensuality is also a form of resistance. Just instead of resisting against the content of your experience, you're resisting towards more of it.
Because you can, the practice of that peaceful mind in regards to whatever is felt, that's really the practice right there. It covers everything.
We said that before.
All directions, above, below,
if you practice Brahmaviharas in regard to how your whatever current feeling is presently enduring, you are already practicing that framework inadvertently. You don't even think about the framework in the more general picture, the non-content. Just have non-resistance in regard to presently enduring feeling. That's it. Non-resistance towards more of it, non-resistance away from it, non-resistance towards ignoring it.
You couldn't possibly try to hurt someone because you don't...
No, because intention to hurt, intention to engage in sensuality, intention to harm, intention to be cruel is always universally rooted every single time in every single being, regardless of the culture, mental faculties. It's always rooted in them resisting whatever they're feeling at the time. It cannot, that's why it's unwholesome inherently. Like you cannot be cruel for the good reason. Impossible. Impossible. Because intention of cruelty requires, as its necessary basis, you resisting how you're feeling.
So, a person who has developed that much and steadied his mind that much, and that practice of peacefulness, regardless of what is felt, non-craving, it's an automatic
contentment.
Yeah, contentment is there automatically.
Yeah, it's a result of it.
He needs to also discern that.
Yeah,
to develop that,
which he would. If he already developed to that point, he would discern that he's content amidst discontenting environment.
Yeah. And that's how mudita described in Anguttara Nikaya how does he get rid of discontent? By
practicing mudita. Yeah,
which is
exactly,
contentment.
Exactly. See, and that's so it's another step further of the same principle that you started with in regard to metta. It's even less personal. So now it's not even anymore about others and your involvement with others or this or that. It's really on the level of content, discontent. Being able to endure discontent, being able to endure elements, being able to endure sickness, being able to endure abuse, disagreement, criticism, being able to endure basically anything that you're subjected to and not lose the mind of contentment, that's mudita. And you see that's already higher than just enduring non-ill will.
Yeah. It's that spiritual joy, so to speak, that people, I don't know how to use it. But
because spiritual joy tends to be like...
But it's a joy that's not connected with whatever's happening.
Exactly, yeah. It's truly imperturbable by any circumstances. It's like same joy you get in jhana, yeah. Joy that you're secluded and unaffected, free of concern in regard to the entire
Which
world.
is a strengthening of what you're doing.
Yeah.
It can only strengthen what you're
And then you could see how naturally, if you would develop that principle further, it's the utter equanimity, complete. And you wouldn't have to sort of, do patchwork and tie loose ends to connect your love of metta and metta loving with utter indifference towards everything, everyone, including your own life, your own emotions, your own state of being, which Arahant would be developing. But if what we describe, you realize how metta would lead to karuna, which leads to basically contentment amidst discontent. Like, your mind does not resist unpleasant circumstances, unpleasant elements. And what does that result? What does it culminate in? In utter equanimity, in regard to good or bad. So yes, by all means, practice Brahmaviharas correctly.
Yeah. And another description of mudita, just to go back a little bit, is in Anguttara Nikaya again, where the Buddha talks about the three assemblies. I think it was the foremost assembly, the divided assembly, and the harmonious assembly. Harmonious assembly was monks who live regarding each other with eyes of affection, not quarreling, no disputes, with non-conflict. That is how they live in the divine abiding of mudita. So it's monks living together with others.
So what's the best way to regard somebody with a friendly eye? To keep visualizing and reminding yourself what a good friend that person is? No, that depends on the circumstances, because if on another occasion they don't do something you deem as a good friend would do, means your whole friendship then is affected by it. Means your whole state of mind would be affected by it. But if on the other hand you only care about your own state of mind of friendliness regardless of who you live with or who comes your way, you protect your mind as you would protect a child, you will be automatically, inadvertently,
living
incapable of ill will towards them. So which is better? Circumstantially not being affected by ill will, or becoming unable to be affected by ill will? Well, the answer is obvious. So the best way to regard yourself with affection and regard others that you live with a friendly, affectionate eyes is basically protect your own mind from ill will, from resistance in regard to how you feel. Can you have an ill will towards a person that said something disagreeable to you if you don't mind experiencing disagreeable feeling? It's inconceivable to hate that person.
No matter what they're doing.
And you would not need to deal with anything either.
Yeah.
In order to maintain that, because the framework remained unaffected.
You don't have to look at the positive points.
Exactly.
Of the person.
You don't need to manage them in order for you to not hate them.
Yeah.
Simply by not resisting the disagreeable feeling that you're experiencing, you cannot hate whoever was perceived to be the cause of that disagreeable feeling. That's already metta, done properly.
So you're covering all circumstances that might arise.
You're basically finding like a gateway through which circumstances have to arise. And instead of chasing and managing and dealing or preventing circumstances, you realize all I need to do is protect the gateway and not lose the sight of it. Then whatever's in, I'll know it's in, whatever's out, I know it's out, and that's all you need to know. That's how you protect it. Finding the context that is universal to good or bad, agreeable or disagreeable, content or discontent, and then protect that context. And that's how you go beyond content and discontent. And that context is not resisting what you're currently feeling. And you always have to be feeling something.
Or just peacefulness.
Well, no. Peacefulness will come as a result of it, as a combination of your absence of your resistance towards what you feel.
Yeah.
That's the peace. Peace is not feeling the pain. Peace is not being disturbed by the pain or not being pulled by the pleasure.
Yeah, that's non-conflict. That's what I mean by peace.
Not conflict internally, exactly. Then that's another thing. Can you have conflict with anybody outside without you already being conflicted with what you're feeling at the time that you're refusing to accept? Impossible. So if you remove the conflict, so you can spend a whole life, dedicate a whole life in trying to eradicate the conflict out there in the world, and you will fail, because that's not where the conflict is rooted. It's rooted in basically however every single individual is feeling at the time they're resisting it or giving into it. That's already the root of the conflict. So you remove that internal conflict, it will be impossible to be conflicted, even if the whole world is seeking conflict with you, to the point of like physically harming you and so on.